Welcome to Take Your Points. My name is Ronan Scott. This week we've got Cahal Carvill, Niall McCoy, and our special guest is Seán Cunningham, the Asia GA officer. But to start, we're going to talk about Cahal's column last week, which was entitled Mavericks, and you took Jim Connolly as your inspiration. Cahal, you want to give us an idea why you picked Jim?
What I had in mind was, and Niall will appreciate this as well, when sports reporters and journalists go to games, and we saw it at the weekend. Jim Galvin, I suppose, is an expert at it at this stage. Anytime they do interviews, and even Conor O'Callaghan's interview, they didn't give anything away. It was bland. There was nothing really to write about. Looking forward to the final. No big hysteria like usually you would say. We had a great display there, and it's brilliant to win, and add a bit of colour to it. Whereas there's none of that, and I think that's dying within our games. And the likes of Jim McConnelly, and I also referenced the great Colin Corkery and Kieran McDonald and Mayo. There's a bit of flair and a wee bit different, and the sort of maverick side of things, was something that I sort of can latch on to, and it makes it more interesting. You want the story behind them, you want the personality. That's what makes the GA what it is. It's a melting pot of different type of people from different backgrounds, all working towards the same goal. And I personally think that that's going out of our games, where you've got PR managers, where you've got management teams saying you can't speak to the press, everything has to go through the county board or go through other people. And I just want someone to go out and say something of interest in these interviews, because it's becoming at the point after the game's over, you don't really want to hear from the managers, because what are they actually saying? I think from Dublin's perspective, the only time outside of the instance involving Connolly that there's been any type of personality shown was when Jack McCaffrey a couple of years ago had too much of the wine at the table in the banquet in the background, and since that we haven't really seen his personality. It was cracked down upon. So I suppose the point of my column was looking at those great players and where there is that type of personality, and it leads to, I think, they'll try something different on the field, where we have these defensive systems and boring, and they'll do something a wee bit, eccentric that we haven't seen before, and that's what people pay in to see. And to my mind, we shouldn't be trying to make one size fits all. We should be encouraging those Mavericks to go out and express themselves within the games.
So whenever you were a player, then you were trying to be a Maverick, like number one for you was act the maggot?
Well, I certainly wouldn't say that, but I wasn't afraid to express my views, and if someone asked me something, I wasn't going to go through the PR manager. I was going to say it like I saw it, and I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And whether it gives the other side a bit of an advantage, when you go out to play, they're not going to say, oh, well, Cahal said X, Y and Z. If you can't get up for an inter-county match without something like that, then there's something wrong. I like to bring my personality to how I play as well, and I think if you try and curtail that side of you're a worse player for that. So I really do think that in this day and age, all of those good players that have that personality shouldn't be afraid to show it, irrespective of the PR manager and the management team. I just think be yourself.
That's an opinion that probably most journalists would agree with now. We always want somebody to say something funny to the Gaelic life. But on the opposite side though, do you think it's managers would want players who mouth off, and do they not want guys who toe the line and maybe not stick to the plan or stick to the system?
It's not towing the line. I think there's a balance there. Dublin are the most purposely bland team in Ireland, and Philly McMahon, with his background in his book, was very interesting, and Jamer, as Cahal mentioned, he's just a naturally interesting character. There's a balance, you could move away from the old cliches and stuff, be interesting, and you don't have to shout down the opposition. You can just add a bit of depth and stuff like that. And to me, it all comes back to trust. A manager, these are adults, and a lot of managers don't seem to trust them to just speak their mind in an honest way, an engaging way, an interesting way. And you see it. You could see the best team in Ireland play the worst team in Ireland, and you hear all the 50-50 game and different stuff like that. And you know it yourself, Ronan, and a lot of media outlets are the same. We go more towards the ex-players now, because ex-players are away from that environment. They're more likely to give an honest opinion. But people still want to hear players say it, and if they're coming out with the same repetitive stuff, people switch off. And that's why it is great to see boys like Connolly, and even my own county, Jamie Clark's an interesting character. Rian O'Neill's an interesting character. We don't know much about them, but we can tell there's something there. Michael Murphy, there's something there that's interesting, that people are going to switch in to watch Michael Murphy. They're going to switch in to watch Jamie Clark. But as Cahal says, getting less and less of those boys, and it's a it's a prototype across the country now rather than.
Is it a case that they're being stamped out and players aren't going into the game because they're not talking? Like, Conor Mailer recently at the Tyrone press conference, he was very good. He did quite an in-depth conversation. The lads in the office were saying he was very.
Two options: either they are being told this way, and we have to believe with certain how professional inter-county set-offs that is way. The other thing is players are feeding off players, and they're seeing that, Team A are seeing little, so I'm going to see a little, and maybe it just becomes a sort of a normality for a player not to see anything. So both possible options. I think at the highest level there's definitely some media management. We do know that there is media management in inter-county game, we know that's a fact, but either of those options isn't that interesting. And if you get an interview and someone says something really interesting, you're in cloud nine, because it's so rare these days, so GA players aren't born, but at the moment they're very born. I think I referenced it before England went to the World Cup, they put every player in a room, they had a booth for every player, and every journalist was able to go around every single player and talk to them for as long as they wanted, and some of the stuff that came out of that was first class. You look at the Athletic, the new website that's launched, and some of the stuff is first class. If players in the Premier League can be more open than GA players, then there's an issue there. So just as I say, you don't have to go full throttle and call your opposition clowns, just loosen the strings a wee bit.
How much is it the journalists not having the trust of the players, that the players don't want to speak to the journalists?
I think there is a responsibility of journalists. I don't think we ask tough questions. I think there's an ever-growing fear of losing access to teams and players if you see something, or maybe ask a question that's a bit too probing, or maybe write something that's a bit critical. I think in today's game there seems to be a lot more journalists being cut out, or teams not speaking full stop and different things like that. So I think maybe that plays on the minds of journalists a wee bit more. So I think it is a bit of a dual responsibility there, maybe a bit of bravery on all sides, including the journalists ourselves, just to because it's up to us to ask the right questions sometimes too, to make the good story. So I think there's blame all around the show, but it would just, it'd be nice just to revigorate it a wee bit more,
Mm-hmm. Surely the job of a sports journalist is to ask those probing questions and to find out what people really actually want to know about the team. Like if there is an issue with a manager, or if there's an issue that has happened, they don't want, how are you looking forward to the next game? Oh yes, it's going to be a tough match, etc., etc. They want to know about that incident that happened, what was the outcome, or what actually happened there. There's responsibility in journalists to ask those questions and not to be afraid of the backlash of asking probing questions that the people want to hear. And yes, I can understand when you're at the coalface, it is quite difficult, but it's not the point that we're asking questions that would give the other team an advantage. You're asking questions that the people who actually watch the games and are interested in it want to find out an answer to. And also, going back to the point about personalities, there's nothing wrong with letting your personality show. It doesn't mean you're denigrating the other side. It means that you're being yourself and expressing your views. And to my mind, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and players shouldn't be afraid to be themselves.
I've asked a manager about, I'm not going into specifics, an incident before, and the response was, if you ask that again, I'll end the interview now. So there is, and it's unfortunate, but the reality is there's a bit of a tightrope, because I know in Gaelic life, if we took a county and we wrote something very critical on them, we do risk being blacked out by that county and being given no access to players and management. That is the modern GAA, where management teams have this sort of belief that every word's going to be scrutinised and every word matters. And I think you go back 20 and 30 years ago, you don't have that sort of. There's players wouldn't let their managers not speak to the media. They would see it as nonsense. But it's just the environment and everything. We're talking nutrition. Everything is just so controlled, and it's all about this controlled environment, and it's a consequence of it.
Yeah, and I find a lot of times we talk about this all the time. The teams that let their players speak the most do the best. They tend to be the one. Anytime they do they circle the wagons, they're the teams that lose.
I said before, I remember Crossmaglen, who have always been and still are an amazing team, club for getting access, always been very honest, always give good copy, a team that would rarely go into cliche sort of mode and would say what to say, and really refreshing. But I remember, I think it was, they were playing St Bridgetton in All-Ireland semi-final, and I think they put a stop, I could be wrong, but I think they put a stop, no interviews for that match, and they lost the match, and I'm like, how rare did Cross, so what benefit did it do? I just think, you put in bands like that, it adds another stress level to it, it sort of takes you out of normality, just let boys talk away, and maybe some like it, some people don't like it, they just have to say no to an interview, but some boys will enjoy it. Like Cahal here, who loved it as a player.
I wouldn't say that. But also, if you look at other sports as well, like I follow the boxing quite a bit, and those 24/7 access shows before the big fights, and they're not only are they being interviewed, they're being followed around by a camera, 24/7, and it doesn't take anything out of them. And even one example is the university boat race, which the amount of access that they give on that there, and the interviews and everything they got, and American football, the amount of characters that you have in it, and maybe the games aren't that interesting. Whereas the flip side in GAA, the games are amazing, but we don't have the characters anymore. American football, we have all the characters, all the colour, all the pageantry, but the games can be, not the best for us. So I think there is, in terms of branding and bringing this to a global market, and increasing participation and involvement, etc., that does play a part in terms of letting people be who they want to be and express themselves.
Is there possibly a way of beating Dublin is to do a blanket media ban after the weekend's performance? Doesn't look like they're going to get beat, does it, Carl?
No, I think the opposite way is to allow all the media to come and speak to them. Maybe that's it, because the whole media ban's been there with Mayo and been there with all of the pretenders to the crown. And I think let's go in the opposite way and let them go out and express themselves. Go man for man, don't go defensive. And where is the blueprint for beating Dublin? Everyone said that Mayo were the team who had the physicality and the ability to do that, and I've said previously on this programme that I thought the legs were gone and the mileage on the clock for Mayo, and success, even with this Dublin team who have some of the older players, it's been rejuvenated with the youth coming through, but also that success breeds more success, and the likes of Mayo, how many times can they go back to the well? Can or will they be beaten in the final? I can't see it. But what I will say is Kerry have the players to give Dublin a lot to think about, and I think if there was any team that could take them, especially for the 5 in a row and going back to 82 and Kerry being unable to do it, and the special players, the youth that they have in that, especially in the Kerry forward line with O'Shea and Alex Clifford, and if they can get O'Brien back, which I think he will be back for the final, I think they have as good a shot as anybody. But is this a special group that are going to go down as the best of all time? I think in 3 weeks' time we will see Dublin doing 5 in a row, and they'll go down as the greatest team, and some of those older guys will go off into the sunset with an array of medals that will be the envy of the rest of Ireland.
What was your thoughts now on?
Just on it, Peter Keane, I don't know if you saw the quote today, he's decided just to take the mick with the interviews. He's doing exactly what he wanted to do. He said he didn't watch the Dublin match and different things like that, so more of that please before the final. I give Kerry more than a serious chance, to be honest with you. I do expect them to win, but I really don't see it as the foregone conclusion as some made out. I think Kerry obviously showed at the weekend they're a better team right now than Tyrone. I think they've an excellent chance. David Moran's been superb in midfield. Tommy Walsh came on and was very, very impressive when he came on, just doing the simple things, taking catches, laying them off now, shooting. Still looks incredibly rusty. I've seen him a few times now since he come on in cameo, since come back from Australia, and his shooting's just completely gone. They were very naive at the back in the first half against Tyrone. Now that's the big worry for me. Con O'Callaghan, his movement is just unbelievable. You look at the second goal of the weekend, it was incredible, his sidestep there. So if there is naive again at the back, they'll not win. But if they can sharpen up at the back, get the sort of match-ups right, get the cover right, the position in the cover right, because it's been all over the show all year, I think out the field from 8 up to full forward, and O'Brien will get off at that Meade black card, I give them a really solid chance of winning, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and you could say too that they may not win this year, but that's a team that's got massive potential.
Oh yeah, it's a very young team. O'Shea there, Levin, Clifford there, they're all young lads. And even your boy Sherwood to come on, I thought he made a really big impression. I think it's 17 players from the 5 All-Ireland minor winning teams have already made their senior debuts. We can imagine a few more that reach the semi-final this week are going to make it the next year too. It's incredible. Probably as good a talent coming through as anyone, and that includes Dublin. So, can they manifest in an All-Ireland winning team over the next couple of years? I think that's an absolute certainty. Can they do it in 3 weeks? You're right. Maybe a year too soon, 2 years too soon, but I really expect it to be a tight final.
Were you surprised with the Tyrone result, and do you think this call for Mickey Hart's head is a valid one?
It's a difficult one. You know, everyone's on the assumption that's calling for his head, the assumption that if Malachy O'Rourke comes in or someone comes in, they're going to take them on to the next level. And I still just don't think they have the forwards there to take that next step. Even with Cal McShane, I think he hit 49 points in the championship this year, or something ridiculous like that. I personally, 3 All-Irelands Mickey's won. He's bought himself time now. Okay, it's 11 years since the last of those, so you can see, right, fair enough, that's far too long, but a couple of Ulster titles in the last couple of years, I'm just not sure that a manager that comes in is going to take them on the next level. And my assumption would be Mickey will call time on it before Tyrone call time on Mickey, because he's been there since 2003, and surely to God he's possibly having enough of it, like, you know. But I just, you know, a word of warning for anyone that thinks that things are going to get better when Mickey leaves, because he is taking them just to finals and semi-finals consistently, even in this barn period compared to the first half of his Tyrone career. On the match itself, Kerry Wrexham in the second half, Tyrone stopped doing a lot of things that they were doing well. A bit slower getting the ball into McShane, a couple of his shots early in the second half went off, and it just gave Tyrone or Kerry that sort of confidence. It sort of kept the door open, and their shooting was fantastic. Clifford kicked a couple of unbelievable scores, Geeney kicked a lovely score. Just confidence sort of, and Kerry started, it was like a challenge match, first 20 minutes Kerry's, and they just picked it up and were more than deserving winners.
Do you agree with that assessment, Carl? Do you think that there's more in this Tyrone team? Like, can Mickey get more out of them?
My personal opinion, I think Mickey's stayed too long already. I think there's a loyalty to him within that, and he's created this through his success, granted, you know, the guy who brought the All-Ireland to Tyrone for the first time, and, you know, he has, I suppose, influence within that Tyrone setup that has been built up through the years and through the success, but, you know, time waits for no man. I think some of the decisions, even bringing off Niall Sludden yesterday, couldn't understand that. He was taking the fight to Kerry in the second half, and I just couldn't understand why he did that. There was a lot more deserving people to be taken off. So the microscope is on him, especially given the length of his tenure there. And I think if there was nobody waiting in the wings to come in and take that job, I would think, you know, give it to him again. And I think he will get another year, another 2 years there, but I think it's time to shake things up. I slightly disagree with Niall on the basis that I think they do have the forwards there, and they do have the players to push on and to get over the line against Dublin, but it needs reinvigorated. It needs a bit of courage to change that defensive formation, to push on. Like McShane has been a revelation this year. I think it was when Andy Moran won the Player of the Year, he scored one more point from play than McShane has this season, and that's not only taking account of the frees. So if you bring him in, and they had Donnelly pushed up before in the league, which worked well, and I think everyone has been pointing to the Donegal match, which was an off day in my opinion for that Tyrone team, and if they had have stuck with the process and the structure that had been in place instead of reverting to that defensive system, and if a new manager does come in, plays with that courage and lets the players go out and express themselves, that's the only way, to my mind, that I can see them taking another All-Ireland.
You know, you have McShane playing potentially Player of the Year form, yet they still can't get past the semi-final. And I just, you know, you look at Jamie Brennan, the impact he's had, you look at Paddy McBurdy, I just don't see who else is there that can step up in Tyrone and be to that sort of level, a McBurdy level. Like, I just don't know who's the forward we've had. It seems like we've had the same 4 or 5, Caliskey, Ronnie O'Neill, Darren McCurry. It seems to have been on repeat, Lee Brennan, Mark Bradley, and none of them have really stepped up. And I suppose what you're writing, what you're saying there, have they not stepped up because they haven't been allowed to? And I suppose that's will only be proven in time, I suppose, if someone else comes in and gives them that freedom to do that. So I suppose it's a straw man's argument. We won't know for certain, but to me, I just don't see a top class Paul Mannion there or something like that.
Tyrone fans are probably saying right now, Derek Canavan, he's coming in.
Yeah, but what is he? What age is he? Is he even 20 yet? Like, it's got, again, just time. But I suppose on what we've seen, certainly. So maybe it'd be the perfect time for someone like Derek Canavan to have someone else come in and give him that freedom, because it's not only in Tyrone. We've seen this happen in other Ulster counties where we see superb underage minor corner forwards, all of a sudden are hard-working half forwards. And I suppose, as you say, maybe it is all about the manager, and maybe if Mickey does step aside, we might see these players move to the next level. Because at the moment, under Mickey, whether it's his fault or not, they don't seem capable apart from McShane.
Okay, I think we've covered enough of the Tyrone All-Ireland. We'll talk about it again next year. But thanks very much. We're going to talk to Seán Cunningham next. Our guest is Seán Cunningham. Seán's the North Asia GA officer, and we have him in because he played an important game at Croke Park. But first, I wanted to ask Seán, how did you come to be the North Asia GA officer? How does somebody from County Down go all that way out there?
Well, Ronan, I've been in China since 2012 now. How I came to be involved in the Asian County Board, a dairyman asked me, actually, Joe Trollan, I think you know Joe well. Mm-hmm. Joe's a good balanced screen man, and Joe had asked me would I become involved in the committee, and then I progressed to be the North Asia officer. It's a voluntary role, but it's one that I hugely enjoy. It's a very demanding role. I mean, it's a huge region. North Asia encompasses, there's clubs, a lot of clubs in China, Japan, South Korea. The number of clubs has grown. Even China itself, where I'm based, is a huge country. So there's a lot of clubs there, and it's about facilitating those clubs, helping them absolutely any way I can, especially helping new clubs, help them get up and running. And we have many different regional tournaments. We have the North Asia Games, we have the South Asia Games, and then we have the Pinnacle, the Prime Tournament every November, which is the All Asia Games. So it's a busy and demanding role, but as I say, one I really enjoy.
But did you go out there just to teach GA, or what was your goal to go? No,
I'm a teacher. I mean, I went out to teach. I used to work with Ulster University, and my ex-boss, an Antrim man, asked me would I go out and teach in China, and I said, yeah, I would love to have the experience. My mum took a bit of convincing. I had told her I was going to teach in Spain prior to that. She talked me out of it, saying it was too far away. So China took a bit of selling. But I went to a place called Zhengzhou to teach. Zhengzhou you could describe as like the Connemara of China. It's a very remote part of China. I really enjoyed it. It wasn't easy. It was challenging at times, but I was teaching English there, and we had a partnership with University College Cork, and I wanted to prepare the students as best way possible to study in Cork, and I thought the best medium to do that is through the GA. It's a big part of my life, and I was showing the students hurling, camogie, Gaelic football, and they thoroughly enjoyed it, all aspects of our games.
So your approach really wasn't like a lot of other non-Irish based clubs, where if you go to America it's set up by Irish people who want to play the games, or they set up hurling clubs because they want to hurl. You were there trying to help these people prepare for coming to Ireland.
Yeah, I wanted to help them as much as I could, because I know it's a big cultural change, a big shift to go from Ireland to China or China to Ireland. So I wanted to help prepare them in the best way possible, and I think the way they've made friends through Gaelic games, some of the students have joined clubs in Cork, and it's been a fantastic way for them to assimilate into local Irish life here. So, similarly, when over in China, you take what you love to there. I love GA. It's part and parcel of what I am. So I had to bring it with me, and the students, they really embraced it.
What is the draw for them? I can understand Irish people want to play GA, but why would somebody from Asia who'd never seen the game before want to play, or in your experience?
I think they're very curious, Ronan. I had one student who stated to me that perhaps hurling is actually a Chinese sport. He went on to tell me that stick and ball games originated in China. So there you go.
So you've noticed that they have the hand-eye skills, hand-eye coordination for hurling then?
The students that I've had in China, they have a natural flair, I feel, for hurling. They've got great eye-to-hand coordination. You look at ping pong, badminton. So they had that natural talent I felt for hurling. Perhaps with Gaelic football, they found it a little bit robust and physical at times. Hurling they seem to enjoy a lot, and puck fadas I've organised in China, especially in the regions of Zhengzhou and Luoyang and Henan province, they've been very successful because the students have really enjoyed and bought into what hurling's all about. They really enjoy the stick and ball games, perhaps more than Gaelic football.
Can you tell us a little bit about the game in Croke Park? What was that all about? Why did you do it, and how difficult was it to set up?
Well, Ronan, the game in Croke Park was a brilliant event for everyone involved. It was brilliant for my club, St John's, and it was also brilliant, obviously, for the students involved. I've been teaching in China, as I say, since 2012, and a lot of students, you're telling students in the classroom about how incredible Croke Park is and how brilliant our games are. For students to then go and try the games themselves in Croke Park was a surreal experience for them, you know. One of the students, when he scored a goal, he ran the length of the field to give me a high five, and that wee surreal moments like that, they live with you for a long time, you know. And the students, it gave them a great preparation for the World Games, which were held in Waterford a week later, to play in front of a huge crowd. It was half-time of Donegal-Kerry match, big crowd there. After it, Marty Morrissey interviewed them. The students loved that as well. But very significant, Ronan, Chinese state media covered the event. I mean, on 2 separate news items, the game was covered, and that is hugely important, not just for the GA, for Tourism Ireland, for education in Ireland. You look at the growing number of Chinese students and the Asian students we have here. For Chinese state media to cover the St John's versus China game was very significant indeed. As I say, especially for the wee student of mine that scored the goal, that'll live with him for a long time. My dad was doing umpire, and he knows the student because he's been over to Ireland a number of times, and my dad was clapping and shouting and roaring, you know, when he scored it. I said, Dad, you have to be neutral when you're an umpire here, you know. So everyone bought into the excitement and the buzz of the game and the occasion.
Why did state media cover it? Like, what was the significance for them, or how could they get that game onto such a big audience?
Well, I always believe in thinking big, and I thought, why not contact Chinese state media? The only thing they can either say yes or no. Thankfully, very fortunately, they said yes. One of their main correspondents is based in Dublin, so I was able to get his contact, met him for coffee. We gradually got him around to the idea of covering this game, and they followed us around the whole day, which was priceless. I mean, the scale of China with over 1 billion people, 1.4 billion people, that was huge that the game was covered in that. So, and they want to cover future events as well, so it's the start of an interesting dynamic and a strong relationship.
How important are the World Games, you know, for clubs like yourselves in promoting the game? How do they help?
The World Games, I mean, a huge event. The growing number of teams. From Asia alone, we had 6 teams, which is very significant. We're already thinking ahead to the 2022 World Games, which hopefully will be held in Waterford again. They were fantastic hosts. We had twinning partnerships. Ourselves and Hertfordshire GAA were twinned with Dungarvan GAA, and they were fantastic to us as well, you know, just helping the students settle on that. We would love to grow the number of teams further still. We're not resting on our laurels. We've a lot of work to do. The strength and conditioning of teams from America and from Australia is light years ahead of where our Asian teams are at the minute. But long term, we would very much like to be competing with those teams. And we would also love to bring the World Games up here, up north.
Promotion helps to raise interest as well, and you had a good promo there when you got those people onto the Great Wall of China, and you had a puck fat along the Great Wall of China. How does one manage to do that?
That's right, Ronan. We had I had a number of puck fatas in Hunan province, in Zhengzhou and Luoyang, and then up in Shijiazhuang. And I thought, you've got to think big again. And it was the 40th anniversary of diplomatic ties between China and Ireland, and I thought probably the most unique place, perhaps globally, you could have a puck fata would be not the Cooley Mountains, but the Great Wall of China. That took a lot of organising, and my university were very helpful. I contacted UNESCO. It was a lengthy organisational process, but very much worth it. And the students, I mean, they would say it was one of the best days they've had as well. We lost a lot of slithers, but it was a fantastic event. And a good friend of mine from Pakistan actually won the event, and the length that he could strike the slither was phenomenal. So it's brilliant to see, and going to build on that and have even bigger puck fatas, maybe not in as unique a location, but in other regions of China.
Seán, it's a fantastic story, like incredible, and hopefully you'll come back in a couple of years' time, or even sooner, to tell us more stories of the GAA in Asia and how it's growing.
It's a pleasure, Ronan. I would love to come back. Thank you.
Thanks for your time. So thanks to Seán, thanks to Niall, thanks to Cahal. That's our show for this week. We'll see you in a few weeks' time.